Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we thank you for all the people that are here. Thank you for the willingness of everyone to serve the community. We just ask for your blessing. We ask that you fill each one of our hearts and orient us towards you in everything that we do. In your name, amen.
Thank you.
You all should have had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting. Any additions, corrections, comments?
Motion to accept.
Brad approved. Need a second, Bob? Second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Sheriff Dan?
Is this for K-9?
Yeah, that's what's on first.
Okay, we're coming to, we're K-9 to fix the issue I'm having with scheduling the K-9 comp days off for them being compensated for the care and maintenance of their partners, which is required by federal law. Did you send that to them, the breakdown of price?
No.
Okay. We have a policy that we'll be promoting to the commissioners, but I guess I'm asking for your permission or your approval that if they approve the policy, then we can move forward with this. But we're going to a straight compensation for their time. The two patrol dogs, they work half the days of the year, so they will be compensated while they're working to maintain their dog. The SRO dog is the outlander because his requirement is to be at the school during his work hours. So he can't leave to go maintain the dog, things like that. So he basically has to be paid 3.5 hours of overtime a week. Shanna's done the breakdown. It's 4,000 some change per patrol dog. And then the SRO dog is almost $9,000 a year. That will be put into the salary matrix as a, how do we go?
Stipend.
As a stipend. So it can be budgeted. We'll know who the K-9s, and when if that officer is no longer a K-9, the dog retires or whatever, then we can just stop that stipend being paid into his payroll, on the payroll. This year it's not budgeted for that, so I'm not asking for an additional now. I'll see how the year goes. We've had some guys off, so we might be able to work it without having an additional for it. But if things work out, it could be at the end of the year, I might have to come for a little additional to compensate for that. But with the overtime stuff, I can move money around. If it's there towards the end of the year, we might not have to do that, but that's what it's about. We had a meeting with Clayton. Clayton did some research. We brought information in with the case law. It's something that has to be done. But when I spoke last time to you, I guess I was not accurate in how I described how I thought things were being done. Those officers get 12 days basically a year. They schedule those as days off in January throughout the year. And I thought they got the day off. Well, after I came to talk to you after it was reported in the paper, K-9 officers came to me and the sergeant said, well, we don't do it that way. Basically, they would schedule it off, but then if there was another officer sick on that shift or someone got assigned to school, the sergeants were canceling those K-9 days and making the guys work. To me, that's not fair. They had things planned. That's why they took it off. It was part of vacation times and stuff like that. So it was ruining family times or plans. So that was not my intention of doing that way. And how I described to you how I thought it was being done is how I will continue or will start doing it. Because if that would happen, then I am calling another officer or assigning another officer and coming in at overtime pay to cover that shift. So this seems like quite a bit of money. It's just right around $20,000. But in the long run, if I'm paying other guys to come in to cover and they're still getting paid that time off, it's more than that. So I think financially, this is the best way to do it, and scheduling wise, without trying to cover 36 more days off or those days of coverage, it's easiest for my office also.
And it is required per state law anyhow.
State and federal law is required to compensate at the time and a half wage. Correct? Yes, so that's how we figured up, and that, those numbers I gave you for the salaries, that is at that time and a half wage, correct? Yeah, so.
And this does replace the K-9 time that they have right now, which is the time off, not the money. So like we would be going down 9,000, but then up 19. So there would be some savings when we replace the time, but then we just be going up by another 10 on the whole year.
Any questions?
So for $20,000, we get an SRO and 2 additional canines for the county.
Correct, without having to schedule their days off, it's just, it's their stipend to maintain their partner. So what I would be asking you, if there's no questions, is approval of this policy pending the commissioners approving the actual policy.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
John and Fred to approve the motion for compensation policy as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And I know there's some people that had some questions that contacted me, but I guess just from my own perspective, to me, this feels more policy oriented. So I really feel like that we should defer to you on how to run your department as well as the commissioners on any, that type of stuff. But if there's a possibility that it ends up going over, I understand why it's coming to us, but so I guess I don't really have an opinion on it. I just sort
But
of,
that's why,
to me-
because of the financial burden that this is
Yeah.
gonna put on, if I can't cover it, then I'd be coming to you for an additional, you're gonna say, well, why'd you do this without budgeting it? So
yeah.
that's why,
I
in the
appreciate
future, it won't be an issue, because we won't have it budgeted. Thank you.
Just to clarify, so council will be okay with whatever the commissioners decide.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't exceed the financial amount that you all just approved, is that correct?
I think the basically we're saying you haven't asked for an additional yet. So if there's an additional, we'll deal with it. But how you guys want to run your departments has always been up to you. So, appreciate the consensus and all that, but we can deal with additionals when they come.
But it will go on the salary ordinance as a separate line item for all of these individuals. That's why we're coming to you guys. It's because next month we're gonna bring you an actual change. That's the only reason we wanted to get your approval.
Because they'll still make the same, right? You're just talking about the
No,
difference
they're
between,
They're gonna make more.
because are they salaried, is that way?
Well, their hourly wage is this, and this is a stipend on top of that to cover the
Oh, I
expense
see.
of it. So, and that's why it'll be added to the salary ordinance,
I
which
gotcha.
comes to you for approval.
Okay. I
So
was
that's
thinking it was
another
just
reason.
hourly, so just more or less hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Why don't you stay right
I'm staying
there?
right up there.
It's got. Or two.
Okay, this is dealing with the plumbing issues we've been having, and I came to you, I believe last month, talking about the vent issues and a project, trying to correct it. This is Marty Kane from Hattersley. He's basically gonna outline what the problem is and possible solutions for it, that then I can then, correct me if I'm using the wrong word, but I need to basically bid out jobs for it because of the cost. Because this is gonna be, I'm estimating, depending on which plan, probably the minimum plan is probably 300,000 or more. So I have to get a scope of work to be able to bid out, and he's gonna discuss this with you guys, because it's money, but then the commissioners have to actually approve and give me permission to bid it out. But I've just given you guys a heads up. This is gonna be an expensive fix. So that's kind of why I'm doing it here with both. The commission can always hear what's going on, so in the next meeting, it'll be much quicker. But I'm gonna turn it over to Mark.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Marty Kane from Patterson and Sons, like Sheriff Dan said. The problem with the piping system that's in the jail right now is cast iron piping for the sanitary waste and drainage. And the piping is internally corroding and flaking off. obviously then it drops down, plugs up the sanitary mains quite regularly. And either they have to deal with it or they bring us in to deal with it. So there's really no solution other than replacing the cast iron. Obviously that was what was specified on the job when it was installed by the engineer and architects. Obviously we're recommending it be replaced with PVC pipe to correct it long-term and have it substantial for many years to come. The problem comes with obviously the jail, and the occupied cells and things like that. There's there's downtime, obviously, so you gotta do this thing in shifts to replace these parts and pieces, you know, because you can't just shut the whole thing down to do it all at once. So it becomes labor intensive to go in and out and do it in scheduled shutdowns with their schedule so they can move people around. It affects mostly the general population cells and the holding cells, work release areas. We're not seeing the problem as much as like in the office areas because it's all the same piping. But there is obviously anything that's above ground that takes the waste and vent from any fixtures, and then there's the venting that goes up through the roof. So we also brought in Justin from Fort Wayne Pipelining to kind of see what could be done as far as pipelining goes, but that is more of the underground and maybe through the roof. So we're kind of recommending it goes out for a scope of work to either do in phases or do as a big general project that somebody would put a scope together.
And basically what it is either replace all the PVC or cast iron to PVC. And when we talk about the roof, instead of messing with the roof seal that is around that cast iron and then open ourselves up to possible leaks and stuff that we don't have now, their company up so high and it's cut, and then they line the cast iron with their lining product so we don't have to deal with the roof issue. Or if we replace all the cast iron, then we have to get a roofing company in to deal with that aspect of it. And then he's also talking about while they're there, the vent pipes are degrading as much. What are underground pipes doing? And if you look around city of Bluffton, they're doing their entire, I think, is it their water lines or their sewer lines?
They're doing their sewer lines.
They're relining every single foot of underground sewer lines there because they're breaking down. So there's gonna be another bit of work done to just do that as maybe a separate project while they're there to do it. And then my understanding of the contacts or talks we've had, that basically gives you 50 years on the pipes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the most, go ahead.
So you're talking about replacing what part? I mean, and lining the vent?
Effectively,
Go ahead.
everything that's above ground, that's accessible,
Replace.
Marty would
Yes.
replace. And then anything that's, call it 10 feet up through the vent stack would be lined from the vent stack down to whatever PVC they connected onto. Fully, rehabilitating that entire pipe system. The underground stuff that Sheriff Dan's talking about is something I put on the radar because, and this can turn into, am I getting scared into doing work? Is someone telling me my pipes are falling apart, but they're not, because you can get a lot of time out of pipes that are degrading. But with how fast the above grade vent stacks have become, they've deteriorated in the last 7 to 10 years, correct?
Well,
Enough to cause problems, which is surprising. They're not that old. So the underground then goes on your radar because you can't afford to trench that up 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, or 5 years down the road. But it does seem to be a little less burdensome than the vents, correct?
Correct.
And that's all speculation with the underground stuff. And
That
would
is.
you run a camera first?
You would, yes. And even that, unless it's fully deteriorating, you don't get a lot of evidence from the camera. Generally, when you can tell that a cast iron pipe is completely trashed, it's already causing you
Collapsed.
way too many issues, correct?
So is this lining, is it like a spray on liner that you
Yep,
spray in
it's
there
an
or is it
epoxy
sleeve?
coating.
Okay.
Show and tell.
How old is it, Joe? How old is it?
We moved in 17, so it's probably started being
Coating.
constructed, that's not probably 15.
Yeah, 15 is project.
So it's spray, it's
No,
blue line,
then
they
you
spray there.
It's falling apart already?
It
Not
inverts
far
it
apart, but
and
Or the
then
plumbing's falling apart?
recreates a
that
pipe
is
inside
corrosion,
of it.
yes.
That's pretty unusual, isn't
Blow-
it?
blowing up a
Yes.
balloon.
Yeah.
And there was speculation of why was cast iron used. I'm talking to these gentlemen back in 2015 when the job was bid out. Everybody kind of come to the consensus that cast iron was less expensive than the PVC.
Yeah, so you have to.
And sound
What's that?
deadening maybe?
Yeah, so that's what it's used.
And that would give us 50 years?
Yes.
How do we know that?
Well, the manufacturer backs it for 50 years for starters, which is good. And then through the regulation process that all underground pipes go through, the ASTM standards, they're able to assess that like cast iron, they wanted to last 50 years. PVC and the glue inside of it, they also refer to it as a 50-year solution. So that glue is gonna obviously cause you issues before the pipe itself will.
So that's kind of where we are, but rough estimates, like I said, kind of depending on which one we go, and especially if we do the underground sewer, that's gonna be on top of what the other costs are gonna be. And that, like I said, that's not necessarily a need right now, like the vent is, that is a need. We'll just have to evaluate what that cost will be and let you guys make the decision if while they're there, do we want to basically protect those lines while they're there. But that is not a priority to me. The vent stacks are the priority because that is what's clogging it, which causes our backups and it just doesn't flow correctly when your vents are clogged. So that is a need that needs to be dealt with. The underground sewer, I'm not gonna say it's a need. I'm looking at that as they're there as more preventative. So while they're there, we deal with it, but again, that'll be up to you guys just for that decision. So
Is there a better price if we do the underground while you're there doing the vents?
and that will be put into the scope of work and the estimate scope when I get that done. And like I said, I'm gonna have to talk to somebody, because like I said, I've never put the scope of work and a bid out like this, so I don't know, Nate or somebody here, I don't know if it's something that we need to discuss, getting a little bit of a project manager or something for the project like this. I don't know. This is first time I have a deal with something this scope. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. Right now, we're looking at, I'm assuming we're looking to jail, Cume, we'd be paying for it.
That was my
funds are
next
there.
question. How much is in?
About 1.5.
Oh, you already know that. Look at that.
Yeah,
There's a good balance.
so there's a balance there to cover it all. But I know just because there doesn't mean we gotta spend it, but the vent, that issue needs to be dealt with. The sewer lines, depending what the price comes in, if we wanna tackle that right now, I understand that, but.
Right now, we're not really, it's more of an FYI, we're not really asking for anything.
Well, I was going to, but then after thinking about it, then talking with the attorney, the scope of this is large. I can't just, hey, here, we're gonna do this. I have to bid this type
So
of project
I
out.
think what I see actually is the price of just doing the vents, because we're saying that's a necessity, but then, if we waited to do the underground later versus doing the underground now.
I personally don't think that price difference is gonna drive a decision.
Okay,
I really don't.
Okay.
I
Well-
think you'd be happy to see both prices and go, cool, we can push that off 5 years. We'll do that at the expense of separating out the two scopes of work.
And I think that's how I'm gonna try and get it written up, is vent is one project and then sewer, underground sewer is a separate.
so we've had several issues out there with the plumbing. Have we had an inspection to see if there's anything else?
Other than as we go along, most of every valve in that place has been changed by now, and that had come down to the water quality being the end of that 6-inch line. We just got all the material, all the residue came there. We put a whole, facility softener system in that has helped, but I think the damage was done. Because it had been flowing for probably close to 7 years at that point. And the city is talking about running another line coming in from the east to connect it, make it a loop, and that would benefit us even better. But right now, that 6-inch line ends with us, so we get all the sediment, the hard water, we get that. And that has just caused havoc. I've replaced 2 of the pumps out at the pump station. We've replaced boiler pumps, I think. I mean, every major valve has been replaced, so I think we're fixing the issue.
I hate to say it, but those water heaters are gonna be about the next thing on the radar because they've have the hard water and the
Right.
scale buildup inside of them and just to be aware,
Okay.
just because we've been.
Yeah, so, but,
servicing them.
I think the softening system has definitely helped us. But we're just.
So it sounds like we really need to get some numbers first and then come back to the additional, right?
Correct. I need to put out and get estimates put out and bring estimates in, and then we handle that like that type of project.
Got a quick question, Clayton. Do they have to go to the commissioners to get approval to bid this job out? And then it will end up going to the council for the additional out of Cume Jail?
Yes.
That's kind of what I've just given, since you guys are all here, want everybody hear the same thing. But like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was coming to ask you and have them actually give an estimate, but it doesn't work that way when we're talking this much money. I have to bid it out. So, I'm probably gonna use him as a crutch to help me to bid this out of what needs to be done, and then we'll bid it out and then go that route.
It'll be like a base bid of replacing the above ground cast and venting or lining the vents.
Yeah.
And then,
Anything from the ground level up to just below the roof line.
right,
And then, a company like his would come in and line the rest of that through the roof, so it wouldn't damage that roof membrane.
and
That'll be one scope, and
Not
another
like an
scope will
adder.
be underground for sewer
Yeah.
lines. To line.
You have a rough, I mean, are we talking 100,000 or 1 million? I mean, do we have a?
I'm estimating somewhere between 300 and 400. Now, and is that's not sewer?
That's just.
That's the above
That's the
ground.
above
That's
ground.
the above ground.
That's, I'll let Justin talk to
Yeah.
the rest of that, but.
So we're in that somewhat of range.
but what's the lifespan on those water heaters? I imagine they're large industrial.
We have 2 boilers, that alternate. And like I said, they're pushing 10 years right now.
15 to 20 years is ASHRAE standards for those type of water heaters.
But our water has.
Yeah, you
Pretty
mentioned
early on.
all the scaling is probably,
I would say if they wouldn't have put those water softeners in.
They've been done already.
They would have been.
What's the price tag on something like that? Just out of curiosity.
Those water heaters, Brad, probably,
I just got it for about 30,000.
yeah.
30 grand.
and that's not installing, I assume,
No, that's just.
just the cost of the.
Now that 1.5 that we have in there right now, if I remember correctly, we were paying one of the bond payments out of there.
We
Or
did
did
not
we
do
take
that
both
this
out?
year.
I think this past year, we did both out of commissioners. I think we're doing that again this year.
Because
Because we're
those,
trying to build the queue.
We did that all out of general fund.
and they're like $1 million each, right?
600, it's a little over, it's at 1.2 million
Yeah,
altogether.
1.2 total.
That's with interest and principal.
So that's where you are with this. I know I've talked about it, brought in pieces of the pipes for you guys to see, so this hopefully will put an end to a lot of it.
Do we have, I mean, I'm not sure what all of it would entail on some of that equipment, but do we have regular preventative maintenance type stuff? that we
Yes.
do?
Yes.
So we have a pretty good idea what's going on with those water heaters.
Yeah, that's why the system gets checked out 2 times a year. And that's our rooftop units, everything gets checked out twice a year. We get a spring and a fall PM.
And I think Rick has done some of this with projects. I'm sure Brad and Paul have, I'm sure Nate has. They probably them could help guide you on that a little bit if you.
That'll work. I'll get with them, definitely. Any other questions?
Was this a design failure or is it just something that happened?
I don't consider it a design failure. I consider it's the cost of the materials at the time that were installed. Cast iron was the less expensive choice and they went with it. And it's just
Hardly ever installed anymore, I don't think, is it?
Commercially, yes.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's surprising. They've put it in schools in the last 2 years or in the last 20 years in Fort Wayne. Those schools are having major issues. It just doesn't last.
It's pretty
The-
common
the-
in hospitals, obviously, for
sound
the
bed.
sound. It-
But the sewer gases and stuff.
Yeah.
And a little moisture gets into that cast iron and it just eats it. And
Oh, yeah.
then it just all falls down and clogs.
I replaced some of stuff. I replaced stuff like that.
So,
The horizontal splits.
yep.
Yep.
But, so I don't know how soon I'll be back to you, with the information, or the bids. I'll deal with the commissioners on that but it's something that hopefully within the next 2 months, we're gonna be dealing with. I'll be coming back. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. There are some things that don't happen unless the Adams County government does them. The judicial system is one of those things. So in the spring of 2023, I put together a committee to evaluate the current facilities that we have and to look at those and develop a plan to make them more efficient and more safe and cost effective for the next 40 to 50 years. So we started meeting in the spring of 2023. And during that time, we contracted Elevatus architectural firm to help us look at those facilities and departments and also develop a plan to solve the issues that we had. So our proposal involves replacing a superior court that is got structural issues, is inefficient, and from a couple evaluations from the U.S. Marshals Service, has a lot of security issues. Above that is the probation department, which is becoming more overcrowded, has no handicap access, and also presents a security concern for the Superior Court. We've got community corrections in a leased building over a mile from the courthouse. And we've got a prosecutor that's currently operating in the same office with all the 4D attendants and a clerk that struggles with her space needs and also record storage. We've got a public defender board that sits down in a small office on the first floor of the annex. And so what we did was consider 5 different locations, the committee did, and recommended one location to pursue, and that was a system with a new building and a connector to the existing courthouse located downtown. So with that estimate, we came back with a price estimate to do that of right around $32 million. And in comparison, we also looked at locating a new facility out by the jail, which the cost estimate for that came in somewhere around $40 million. So we are currently, the committee is still recommending a facility downtown using the existing courthouse with a connector to the new facility. So we have some options. One of those options is to do nothing. we can leave things as they are and just kind of continue on. I think we've got judges and their staff, we've got staff with community corrections and probations that are operating the best they can with the facilities that they have. So that is an option, is to just do nothing. Another option would be if we wanted to try to find a partial solution to the issues that our judicial system has. So I don't know that we would recommend that. Another option that we have is to do what it takes to continue to pursue the recommendation of the committee. So I guess what we're looking at is if we looked at the complete project, we would look at around $32 million. And so if we did that as a bond, we would look at about $2.8 million a year to service that bond. So to fund that, if we were to capture the 0.2% increase, or the 0.2% that we're currently using to service the hospital bond, when that goes away, it would still involve increase in the local income tax. So to proceed with the project, one of the things that we have to do as commissioners is finalize a location for that project, which we're currently looking into the location between the commissioners. We haven't come to a consensus on that. But in order to do that, we've also contracted Elevatus to do a structural evaluation of the current courthouse. And we've also contracted them to do an evaluation and assessment of the HVAC system at the courthouse to make sure that that building would fit in with our long-term plans and still be operable for the 40 to 50 year plan that we're looking at. So one of the systems that we have discussed is the build, operate, transfer process. And there is considerable flexibility in this process to help us acquire the real estate. It also allows flexibility in the final design and cost parameters. So I guess what we would look at in pursuing that site by the commissioners and council, we would like a commitment from the council to appropriate funds to start that process of requesting proposals from firms to do a build, operate, transfer project. So I don't have costs on that yet, but as far as what that would involve, but some of the funds from the sale of the county farm could be utilized to begin that process of both developing the scope of work and the cost of the project. So I guess I would entertain any questions to this point as far as, you know, your thoughts, questions. But I guess we would like an indication from the council as far as continuing to pursue this project. So we've got several members of the committee here. Brad Weber's here, Ian's here, Jack's here, the mayor's here. He also sat on that committee. The sheriff, yeah, he's still here. So anyway, thoughts, questions. That's why I say at this point, I would like an indication of your thoughts on continuing to move this project forward. Also, Clayton sat on that committee, so I don't know if you have any thoughts that I haven't brought forward.
The commissioners aren't clear on what location.
We're still having discussions. Yeah. So, but we have investigated, you know, when we felt like maybe it would be a cost benefit to build out by the jail. We found out that it was just the opposite. It was still a cost benefit to use the existing courthouse and build next to that. So that also would give us a single entrance to both buildings for security purposes. And it would keep all the judicial systems downtown.
I take all the logistics out of it, which I know that we're kind of getting involved because it's financial, but I want to rely on you guys for that type of it the most. If I just look at it from the money perspective, I really kind of want to see two things before we move forward. And one is, how is this SB1 bill what's it gonna do to our revenue base? And two, I'd like to go through this budget cycle and do everything we can to cut the budget as much as we can, get all the fluff out of it and see how much we can save, because I don't want any new taxes on this at all. But I think with some of the rough projections you guys gave us, I'm cautiously optimistic that I think we could cut enough to possibly pay for it with reserves that we already have and all that. But in terms of where is it, the details and all that, I guess I'm kind of reserving thoughts on that, leaving that in your guys' field for now. And just saying, I'd like to know what our budget, what can we do going through this budget to get it down with that in mind? And then what's gonna happen with this new, with property tax changes?
Sure.
And I agree with Corey, especially the email that Tony sent this morning where they amended SB1 yesterday. Where not only are they talking about affecting property taxes, they're talking about affecting lit. So, until we find out how that shakes out, I'm not willing to stick the county's neck out right now on anything. Sure. And the other question I have, are you planning or do you have planned scheduled public meetings because this is public tax dollars we're talking about spending. And I think we need to, public all over the county needs to be meetings to get the public's opinion on this.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, if we have a commitment to continue to pursue this project, I think that would be the next step, is to hold public hearings. If we need to do it in multiple locations, I think that's a good idea, get public feedback. But I guess I would like to have enough information to present at those meetings that we could come forward with a proposal.
Well, I'm not sure there's a project to be had yet if the location isn't chosen, because one is a mile away and from the other, and you'd be stripping the county seat in downtown Decatur of its vibrance.
And part of that decision revolves around the structural evaluation of the courthouse and the HVAC and those are going on currently as we speak. So, but you're right. I mean, so there's, like I said, several things that would have to happen. And one is to finalize the location and acquire real estate. So you're right. That's a decision that we have to finalize. So.
And with a $6 to $8 million swing.
Yeah.
I personally don't feel comfortable in determining a location until we have the opportunity for the public to hear the options and have input, which Bob alluded to that.
Steve, any thoughts as chairman?
I think what would help me though, council, is a budget number. If for instance, council said, we're willing to spend, pick a number, $20 million to solve this problem, that probably influences maybe a location decision, certainly a project decision. But I think what we were hoping for today, and maybe what I'm hearing is, we need to wait until we go through the next budget cycle. What I would like to know is, do you believe we can find enough money for a $32 million project? Or do you think it's something less than that? Then that tells us really where to go with our work. Because I think you're absolutely right. Location, design, all those kind of things are responsibility of the commissioners. But we really can't do much until we know how much money we have to work with.
If I just giving you a gut a gut feeling, I suppose, which I think is kind of what you're looking for right now. If there was, with the figures that Mark gave us, that sort of broke down, per million, here's how much the bond payment might be, per million that you put down for down payment, here's how much it would lower, et cetera. I think it was coming, depending on the scope of the project, somewhere between 1 and 3 million a year of bond payment. So the question is, how much a year could we do? Can we come up with 1 to 3 million of budget cuts? I feel like if we try really hard, we could probably come up with 2-ish, but that's just shooting from the hip. And I would really want to go through the budget cycle to see if we can find it. We have a lot of cash reserves in a lot of places, so how much of that could be used for a down payment to lower the bond? There's a lot, so I'm cautiously optimistic it can be done. But I do really want to see what's gonna happen with this new tax bill, and then try really hard this budget cycle to see how much we can get down.
I think one of the reasons that we pursued the study on the courthouse is if that's gonna be a significant amount of money, you folks need to know that.
Yeah.
The other issue as we look ahead is acquisition of the property. Are we going to attempt to acquire the property in a traditional method? Or are we going to try something that we've never done before? And I feel a little bit uncomfortable with that aspect. And thirdly, nothing's been said about parking. And it's gonna take a substantial amount of parking, and there's gonna be some costs there that need to be considered as location is considered. And security.
So I guess just speaking for me, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I probably would feel comfortable enough telling you from my perspective, I'm willing to go through this budget cycle, and I think I can maybe come up with 2 million-ish a year of expense cuts, but I can't guarantee that, and it also depends on what happens on the revenue side with the tax bill.
Well, yeah, the tax bill is huge, and Clayton, I think it was discussed about spending another dollar, anything connected to property taxes, which is a great majority
Anything, well,
of county
anything,
revenue.
anything outside of using income tax, I mean, well, are you going towards it triggering a referendum?
Yes.
Yeah, which,
So it would have to be out of lit strictly.
correct,
Couldn't be out of any other funds.
which, I mean, and
And
Mark is more illustrative with the history than I am, but when it comes to a referendum, I mean, they very rarely get passed. More so even for schools, I think a courthouse is, that'd be a
Which,
near
to me, that makes me uncomfortable, because if we think that a referendum wouldn't pass, then why are we, you know what I mean, like, we're supposed to represent.
I've just meant generally.
Oh, yeah, I know, and I guess, if that's generally what happens in the state, then I don't wanna, I'm elected by everybody, right? So I wanna do what everybody wants, and if we don't think it would pass a referendum, then I don't wanna do it, but. So I don't wanna be afraid of a referendum, I guess is what I'm saying, cause it should be the
I think maybe
same.
one of the things, and I might be wrong, Tony, you guys can correct me. If we go through a referendum, it's because we're intending to use property taxes. And so the property taxes would be raised.
Right, I'm
due
just
to the
saying,
referendum.
we don't wanna try and push everything into lit to avoid a referendum because we're afraid a referendum wouldn't pass. Cause if we're afraid it wouldn't pass, we shouldn't be doing it.
Well,
The other thing I wanted to speak to is the acquisition of property. And part of the reason that we're looking at the build, operate, transfer system is because initially, as a government entity, we are only required to offer the average of 2 appraisals and no more than that. I mean, I don't know if there's any flex in that at all, but I mean, typically, that's what we're limited to. If with the build, operate, transfer system, the contractor essentially owns the project, including acquisition of property. So that contractor would not be limited by those same parameters. The contractor would be able to acquire property outside of the parameters of the average of two appraisals. So that would get, that's where we talk about a little bit of flexibility there. So,
Yeah.
so that would not require any condemnation or eminent domain if we use that system. So that's one of the things that makes this, well, they call it the bot system. That's one of the things that makes the bot system more attractive. And the other thing, and what Mark has said is he feels that we would be able to use the proceeds from the sale of Golden Meadows to begin the project as far as developing any other estimates that we need to do or scope of work plan. And then with the scope of work plans, that would give us a final project price. So I guess that's one of the things that we're asking is, you know, if we can look at, you know, moving that much of the project ahead to develop a final scope of work and a final cost. You know, and then that way we can come back to you, that way we could have public hearings that we could go out and we could give some very definitive answers. But effectively without doing that or getting your consensus to move forward, we're kind of really not even at liberty to look at those things. So.
I mean, the request of the engineers to look at the current courthouse, that's already been going by you guys.
We
and
have
paid by the commissioners.
contracted them through Elevatus and it's not Elevatus but they contract with the structural engineer. And then we're also looking at the HVAC system.
I mean, the ball's already rolling on that.
Yeah.
That's almost a need to do anyway, right, Stan?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some
Yeah, that's right. I was getting at it.
Yeah.
It needs done, it needs
I think
done.
there's some foundation issues as well.
Yeah, because Rick identified some issues that he wanted them to look at. So we're in the process of getting results from that.
So the scope of work, I think, would still differ greatly from one location to the other.
Oh, certainly.
So until there's a location lockdown, I don't see spending.
Well, and there won't be a location lockdown until we get some of the results back from the structural engineer. and HVAC.
Yeah, so I think we need to
So,
wait then, and I hate to put anything off, because we've, like you said, we've been working this for
so.
2 years, and actually in those 2 years, the prices went up 5%. So the longer we wait, you know, finalize it and come up with a solution and where and how, and
Yeah.
it's gonna continue to rise. So I don't want to slow anything down, but we gotta.
Well, so right now, you want approval to see, we're not saying we're proceeding with the project and it's a go. We're saying we need to know, we're still kind of in the research phase, but that needs a little bit of funding essentially, right?
Right. So we've got,
So what's that look like?
I'm not sure what the cost of the build, operate, transfer to develop the scope of work. I don't know if there is initial cost to that.
Based on our office's meeting with a couple build, operate, transfer contractors and providers, that cost is actually decently minimal. And I don't know exact numbers either, because really the scope of work, what they develop is, and I think even from their own mouths, it's almost like a second interview, because you don't actually lock in with any type of contractor under that build, operate, transfer system until they have the scope of work, at least I think 75% done, so that they can give you a hard price. And that price is locked in. And then, because that contractor then works with all of its subs to maintain that price level.
At that point, it would go up for bid. Once we had the scope of work.
Well, correct.
Yeah. So at that point, the project, once we had the scope of work, it would be put up for bid. So to develop that scope of work, like you say, is a minimal cost.
So again, we can't even do that until we have a location.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, if we put money towards them, that's sort of committing to this project, right? As opposed to continuing to investigate all of them.
You can't develop a scope unless you know where it's going and what you're dealing
And
with, so.
I guess, you know, there again, coming out of the committee, you know, the recommendation from the committee was to pursue the downtown.
And I agree, it should, I mean, I was on the committee too, and I,
You and John sat
yeah,
on the
so,
committee.
I mean, I definitely agree, anything like that should be downtown. But, and it sounds like that's the cheaper route, but until that is firmly decided on though. I mean, you have to have a location and what you're dealing with to get the scope, so. So I don't know, what are we looking to try to approve here today to keep the investigative part going? And what's the ask?
Well, I guess I would like the consensus of the council to continue to move this project forward, because we are gonna have some additional costs, you know, both, even though they're minimal with the using the bot system.
I mean, define minimal, do we know what a not to exceed number may be or something like that, or?
I don't know if they're,
I don't, I can try to get that to you though.
And get back to what you just said, I'm not sure we're ready to commit to the bot system, because that's a whole process that, if I'm understanding, kind of almost circumnavigates a couple of, like, it makes it logistically easier for us, but it's circumnavigating, the requirement for different requirements. I'm not, maybe we're okay with that, but I'm not sure I am, and I'm also worried that draws you, like you said, specifically to if we're doing it here with this scope, with this type. And I feel like we need more funding for, whatever you need is more investigation right now for, are we positive this is where it's gonna be, and do we have consensus on that from everybody? And I don't think we're there yet.
I think if I could just hear that there's an appetite from council to attempt to fund the full project as has been disclosed. Not that we're moving forward with it, but if there's an appetite to attempt to fund it at that level, then I think that tells us what we need to know as far as going forward with beginning to vet out location and vet out more specifics about the project, and allow us to determine what's the best method of building the project, whether bot is right or not. But I think what I was still a little fuzzy on was, is there an appetite from council to attempt to fund a $30+ million project? And if there is, then that's probably all I personally need to hear.
So I don't think that's anything that takes a vote, but I would say from my personal opinion, or my consent, or my thought would be, yes, I would like to continue to pursue it to see what it would be, and to see while we investigate what, funding methods and what that looks like. So I would say yes, for me
Well, and
personally.
I understand that there's some hesitancy understanding what's going on in Indianapolis and what's going on with our budget, and that this thing could all go sideways and we could be stuck with no project for the next several years. I get that. But in order for us to continue to work, I think I just needed to hear, yeah, we're gonna give this a shot. We think it's possible to fund that full project, one way or another, through cost cutting or through maybe reallocation of the money that's gonna be recouped when the hospital bonds pay off, that there's a project there that we can work on.
So for me, it's a yes.
effectively, if, like he said, if the appetite is not there to pursue a $30+ million project, effectively, we close the book and.
Well, then we have to go back to another.
Yeah.
Is it a partial building? Is it partial move? Is it
Yeah,
full remodel of the existing Spirit Court building? Or we could go back and kind of rethink that.
Well, the location was already vetted though. That's where everything is changed. That's the Hinge now. It's
well,
moved.
it is, but
It's
it
really
is.
not your hand though, John.
Yeah,
That's our,
yeah. I
that's our
know.
issue to resolve.
But that would be our issue to approve funding at
Our
the specific
proposal,
location.
Involves the
The
lower
stripping
cost.
downtown
lower
Decatur,
cost
the
of the
county
two.
seat is not on table for me.
Okay, but our proposal involves the lower cost and what we feel is the most efficient way to solve the issues that we currently have. So
I think, they can check
Just to
that
tack
out,
on
but
to what
for right
Steve said.
now, we can just say
tack on to
yes.
what Steve just said, I think that's the way to go. And if the council decides that they feel comfortable, I'll throw a figure out, if they feel comfortable with 15 million to do a project, then we need to know that.
Yeah.
And if it's 15 million, then we can decide on some of the stuff that you guys are waiting on.
Well, right now, that number would just be completely shooting from the hip. So we need to, again, we need to find out what happens with Indianapolis. We need to take a look at our own budget and see how we can maneuver within that. Cause I'm fine personally if the taxes stay as they are. If the hospital lives up to their end of the deal, they'll be paying that off here in the next couple of years, I think. Which would be right in time, I guess. But I don't want to go beyond that personally. And I do feel like it could be
I
done.
guess I don't think we're shooting from the hip when after a year and a half of meetings and investigation. And
I'm not saying that.
Contracting a professional architect to not only do the initial cost estimate, but just about 2 months ago, they recently updated that cost estimate. So I think we've tried to nail down the project as much as possible.
No, I'm not saying that, that's shooting from the hip. I'm saying asking the council right now for a number to say 15 or 20 or 30. I don't think that's possible right this second to do.
Well, we're not asking for the money. We're asking,
Right.
are you willing to pursue a
I've already
third?
said yes to that.
Stan,
personally.
my best I can tell you, if you want something to move forward on, is I can't vote yes until I know what's happening in Indianapolis and we get through our budget cycle.
Sure.
If you want me to give you a kind of off the hip number here, I feel like we can come up with $2 million a year, whether that's from cuts or from excess revenue that we have to buy down bond. Like, I think maybe we can do that. So instead of saying 15 million or 30 million, I'm telling you, I think I can come up with maybe 2 a year. And whether that means that we overlay it so the bonds are paid later versus the jail bond. I mean, that's gonna change the number a ton, but I'm just telling you, I think I can maybe come up with 2 million a year, and as best I can see, that maybe puts us more in the.
Well, right now, it's just a yes to continue. It's not even
Yeah,
a yes
and
to
I'm
the number, so I'm a
Yeah.
yes to continue.
Yeah, I'm okay to continue,
So
but I
I'm
just
not
don't want that
asking for
30
an
number
official
everyone
vote,
said.
I guess, your feelings.
What's
and I
everybody
guess
else say?
I appreciate everybody's feelings and discussion and questions, so.
I mean, I think we do need to continue to pursue it, but to come up with a definite number, I can't put a definite number to it till we know what's gonna happen, because if they pass SB 1 as amended last night, I mean, we're gonna have to cut 2 million out of the budget just to satisfy SB 1.
Well,
So,
let's leave the particulars of the finance area later. He's
Yeah,
asking
right.
for.
Do we
our
continue?
approval.
I'm a yes
I
to
think we
continue.
continue, but say, what scope of the, and dollar figure of the project, I can't give you that number yet. I don't know what that is, but I think we need to continue.
I think a
And
lot
come-
of the council members, commissioners brought a lot of information. I kind of agree with everyone. I would like to proceed forward because the most important thing is security for the employees. I think Adams County has been blessed not to have any incidents whatsoever. When I went to Fort Wayne Courthouse, no matter that was a cop or not, they still searched me no matter who I was.
Yeah.
Whilst County has the same situation too. They got security there when you walk in that building. Our Superior Court, the Circuit Court, you can walk in freely, We're behind on the times, but I agree with Fred and John and Corey and Bob and the commissioners. I think we need a little bit more, how we're the taxes and what Governor Brown's gonna do with the property taxes. But I would like to see keep moving this forward on my part.
Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely
Yeah.
have to move forward.
Jim, any thoughts?
Moving forward, with our current setup we have, since I was in the courthouse for 8 years. I know that the county workers do have fears of getting hurt by the public that comes in. Because we get angry people that comes in the clerk's office. They're mad about some court ruling they didn't like or paying a traffic infraction. And we've had to call the police to come in there to take care of those issues there. And I know my staff was always concerned about, getting shot someday. Because of, security in the courthouse or the Superior Court, things like that. And then like with the Superior Court, the courtroom's on the first floor. You can just look through the window standing outside there. And that's a bad situation also. And but our current situation definitely needs to be changed.
No matter what the time frame, no matter what the money comes down to, I think we all have to remember who's paying for this. The public of Adams County. and without making them totally aware of what we're about, it's not gonna be an easy, without doing that first, it's not gonna be easy.
I think, well, I agree with you, Doug, so I think that's important.
I think you've been given direction to proceed and keep us informed and let us know where you're at.
Well, I guess at this point, we'll continue to investigate the project as proposed and see where we come. And then we'll come back to you when we've got a location nailed down. And, you know, if we need to appropriate additional money, to use the bot system to develop a scope of work, I guess you might anticipate that, and if we would ask it out of the fund from the sale of Golden Meadows, that would be appropriate.
I'm not ready to vote on that though, because again, that kind of commits to going down this road, and I don't feel like we're anywhere near that yet.
Well,
That's
we
later.
will.
I mean, you're not asking for that right now, are you?
No.
No, but like, say, for example, if we use the bot system, basically that's a design build system. But it's a little different in that the contractor takes control of the project. But the advantage is it gives us flexibility in getting real estate if we need to, but it also gives us a definitive drop dead number of the project cost. So those are two advantages for that system.
I'm not willing to go anywhere until the public's full aware of what we're doing.
I think that's what we all just said. We just keep on going in circles.
Okay. All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Michelle here. Michelle?
Morning.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Got
step
it.
away for 1 second.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll go really quick. Your peanut is getting.
At least commissioners can be quick because they're gonna hear it all now. They're
Should I wait for
already.
Fred or just roll? Is he gonna be a bit or?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, I just wanted to fill you guys in, just a comparison. Quarter 1 of public transportation last year versus quarter 1 of public transportation this year. And you can see that we are increasing substantially in all 3 categories. So our trip numbers are 45% increase. Our fares are 51% increase, and our ridership is a 36% increase, which is exciting that more and more people are finding out about the service. I mean, we've been around 52 years, but this expanded service is really spreading word. Hopefully you guys have seen the vehicles around town. We have 8 that are running, usually around 6 every day. We usually don't run all 8 yet, but we will eventually. Just wanted to thank you guys for all the support to get us there. We are halfway through our 2nd year of demonstration, so I'm currently working on the grant for 2026, which we will have more access to more state and federal funds. I asked if I could have a ballpark as to what that would look like, and they said no, not until I get the grant done. The grant typically takes about 6 weeks. The portion I'm working on right now, I think there's like 15 parts, is 72 pages, so is very time consuming. There's 30 videos that go along with it. So you watch a video and then you do that portion of the grant. But it's definitely worth it. Last year for 2024, NDOT gave us $50,000 to perform this service for Adams County. We got through 2 quarters and that was done. We had used all of their money. So I asked for more. So they gave us $100,000 this year, and I'm hoping to exceed that even more once we're out of this demonstration phase for 2026. How it typically works is, and I'll hand this out later, is a person, if they want to ride the transportation, they call in, give the destination address they want to go, their address, their birth date, phone number, and then we get them on the schedule. Typically, it's at least a 24-hour notice. We don't usually do same day ride just because the schedules are already full and the drivers already have their routes mapped. Maybe down the road we'll go same day service, but we're not there yet. But we do go out of the county just for medical trips only, and anyone who goes out of the county, that's $1 a mile each way. I think you can tell the fare increase has been very beneficial. The previous 50 years, our first 50 years, we just asked for suggested donations, which is kind of a hit or miss whether or not we actually collected any money from the riders now, and that still has stayed the same for our riders that are over 60, but our 0 to 59 have a fare that they pay just like any other public transportation system in the state. So I wanted to update you guys on the quarter to quarter comparison, because it's really an apples to apples comparison. The program is very successful. I wanted to thank you also for your support with the garage. It is fully built. The only thing we're waiting on right now is to get water. Other than that, it has heat and electricity. And then we'll get our final inspection for occupancy. Once we get the water, there's been some issue with the tap. I don't really understand everything, but the apron's been poured and I'm anxious. I know we're past the cold weather elements. Who knows, we'll probably still have snow sometime, but I really appreciate you guys helping us take care of our $500,000 vehicle inventory by keeping it safe, secure, and warm in a garage. So I really do appreciate that. I know it's a county-owned garage. I know there's a lease coming for it for us to occupy it, but I really am grateful to be able to keep those safe, because the sooner we can get on the road, the more people we can serve in Adams County. I am here to ask for our annual allowance allocation if we're able to. Last trip we asked for 42,000. Adams County, all the different governments have been supporting us for decades, and I was hoping to get that same amount for next year, for 2026. I'm hopeful that once we get more into the NDOT funding that I can lessen my asks for all the different governments locally and just depend more on the state and federal money. But for now, I don't know what that is. So I'm hopeful that I'm gonna ask commissioners, I think at 1040, for the same allocation next year that we had this year.
Where does that come out of?
Out of the commissioner's budget, and then,
That's Commissioner's budget.
and then we do budgets in August, but. So do we actually vote on this now? Cause the budget's in August. Yeah, just so we know in advance, basically.
It's just so that you guys have numbers to work with. That way I'm doing the grant. So you take one of this. This so that I know what I can expect. I'm hitting all the different governments. In the next
I'm sure you could safely assume, yeah.
I have big presentations in 4 weeks, so I'm gonna be out there.
Any other questions?
Is this Monday through Friday?
It is, and we extended our hours. We were 8 to 4, now we're 6A to 6B. So we're really able to capture both ends of the workday for the majority of the people.
I see a lot in the mornings at the hospital.
Yes. And probably the biggest, most positive thing that I've seen is we have been taking a young lady who's 24 to and from work every day, and she charges her trip, and she has never had a driver's license. So there's me thinking, oh, she didn't have anyone to actually get her driver's training hours with, because you have to have 40-day and 10-night. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'm like, no, Michelle, you can't go driving with this girl. So anyway, she was able to find someone to drive with. She's taking her driver test this week. So without our service, she would not have been able to work this past year and save money for a vehicle and then work her way to independence, to driving to and from her own job. So that's probably the biggest success story that I can think of, just to help someone get on their feet, have a steady paycheck, and then be able to move forward and no longer use us. I mean, we're gonna miss seeing her, but I'm so proud of her, so.
Well, it's like, yeah, obviously, there's a lot of seniors that take advantage of it, so.
Yeah, and those numbers vary depending on whether or not, I mean, seniors unfortunately come and go. So sometimes our numbers will be higher when they don't have family support, or lower, so.
Well, overall, they've always resembled this,
Yeah.
20, 30, 50% increase every time you.
Come forth, I know.
More
I
people, more
honestly, I was
people.
surprised to see the increase comparing public to public, because I knew it was gonna be an increase when I compared 2023 to 2024, but
No, I'm used to seeing these numbers.
yeah, it's awesome.
Increases.
Yes. So I have the best coworkers around and it's like a family and we take care of Adams County. So I just want to thank you guys for your support and thank you for
Well
your
done.
knowledge.
Very good job.
Thank you. Are
Good job.
there any questions for me? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Michelle, what are your hours again?
6 a.m. to 6.
6 to 6. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Ladies, next up.
6 to 6.
Nothing for me.
You got, Barb right there.
Yeah, Barb.
I couldn't drive for 6 weeks. And my wife, they were, my kids were out.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Personally experienced.
Morning.
a benefit from it.
Morning.
Megan and I are here today to give you an update on the siren situation in the county. On March 15th, there was a storm went through, burned pretty good, and knocked over the severe weather siren at the fire department. So that started us looking into insurance companies and see where we could get coverage, how we could replace that siren. And we found that none of these sirens in Adams County have ever been covered by insurance. So which set us scrambling, trying to find out how we're gonna fund this. After much dilemma and many conversations with various people, John Kreider called a special meeting of EMA and LEPC. And we had that on April the 4th. And it was unanimous that we should continue using severe weather sirens in the county and not just rely on cell phones or apps that people might have on their phones. The discussion came up because the outdoor sirens are just that, they are for outdoor. The other apps in your phones are more for indoor. So it was unanimous with both these committees that we continue to keep sirens in Adams County. So we still are faced now with how to replace the one at the Burn Fire Department. And we've contacted Federal Signal and they're doing a search for us to see exactly what coverage we get from all of our existing sirens. And so once we get that information, we'll have more information to take back to commissioners. But we want to let you know what's been going on.
Just so some of you guys know, EMA, that's all the emergency responders in the whole county. So it was a pretty good meeting. I felt like I was on virtually, but I'm on that committee. There was some talk about doing away with the sirens, and I think that was pretty vocal response back to that no way, we need those. You've got kids that don't have phones, Amish. I mean, it's just everybody wants it. I think there was some talk about right now we're paying for all the municipalities, but there's nothing in the rural, like unincorporated areas. In other counties, they kind of reverse it where the county pays for unincorporated and the cities pay for the ones in the cities. So we're uncovered in the unincorporated. So I think it would be worthwhile. I think it was everybody in that meeting sounded like it was worthwhile to look. That's what they were looking into, is if we covered the whole county and we stopped covering the cities and we covered the out and the cities covered their cities, what would those numbers look like, and just start that conversation.
So we have been doing a lot of research and we still have more to do, waiting on more information to come in. We've talked to surrounding counties to get their thoughts on how they operate, and it's kind of all over the place. Some of the counties, the townships are responsible for their sirens. Others, the municipalities are in charge of their sirens. There's counties, Huntington County, for instance, EMA's budget covers all sirens, whether it's repair or replace. We don't have very much money in our budget. And what we do have for equipment, it covers our vehicle and all of the siren repairs. So we are way under budget to be able to handle a situation like this on our own.
Are we talking about adding more sirens?
If we do the unincorporated out in the areas, that would be new. And then if the cities or townships pick up the cities, how much does that trade off? You know, what's that look like?
The two unincorporated Preble and Monmouth have a siren. Other than that, really outside of the county, there are no other sirens in the county. Pleasant Mills, Lynn Grove, there's nothing. So we're gonna look into that, bring back recommendations, commissioners, to you guys.
Just like,
How we can make it better.
out of curiosity, like what's a siren rated to be heard? Like, does one siren, can it be heard for
Well, it
3, 5
depends on-
miles
It
or?
depends on the model of the siren. Some of our sirens spin, others are fixed. So I think the average is like 2 to 3 miles. And depending on which way the wind's blowing.
Sure.
Federal Signals is doing that study for us now. They have a map and location of all of ours, the models and stuff, and they're gonna show us where we have no coverage and where we do. We're waiting on that.
You know, look into state and federal grants and stuff like that as well.
We have applied for grants before to replace sirens because almost all of our sirens are at least 20 to 30 years old. And we can't get repair parts for them anymore. It's been very difficult. So the grants that we have written, we've been denied. And when we asked why, they said because they do not cover weather issues or situations. It has to be terrorist related. So we would have to order a siren where the first signal was a terrorist attack. The second signal would be a weather concern. And in addition to that, we would have to upgrade all the other sirens in our county to meet that criteria.
Probably is time to rip the Band-Aid off and figure it out. So I'm glad you're doing the research.
It's time to figure out, right now, the county owns all the sirens,
How many are there?
14.
14?
And what about the one that fell down and burned right now? Cause I know I live, that's where I'm at. That's where, I know Dan's at there too. So is it, like, if something were to happen, I know we had storms last week, would the other ones in town reach that far, or do we need to temporarily, cause everyone relies on it right now. I mean, they expect it, so.
And this time of year especially.
Yeah, so is there anything that we could do temporarily just until we get this figured out? I don't know if
They
that's at all.
suggested not moving the sirens because the ones that are there are old. And if we would be to move them, we're taking a chance of one of those two breaking.
Damage.
Yeah.
They said they.
And having just those two, the rest of the town is undercovered.
Okay,
Because one of the sirens is the shorter model to where the range doesn't go out as far.
So if,
so it's uncovered right now, and there really is no temporary way to, we may wanna get the word out, cause I know like my kids, for example, they rely on that, so if they're not worried about it unless they hear it, so. Probably wanna make sure people on that side of town know.
so if we're looking at kind of expanding the coverage area, I mean, I honestly, what's the typical life expectancy of one of these sirens? Do we know?
30 plus years.
Is it? Okay.
Well, the old ones, I don't know how the new ones are made.
Well, kind of the same thing, like when we talked with Mike about the computers, there really is a life expectancy for them.
Right.
And so we should get them on a schedule to, I mean, if we're gonna add, we get those added, but then if the others are at, perceived end of life, then we should start replacing them every, 1 or 2 or whatever, every year. Or
And
2.
when we did our budget last year, there's an area in there where you can, if you know you're gonna need added funds in the future, we put in there siren replacements because we know these are coming to an end. These, Bob Hakes does the maintenance on the sirens, but some of them he can't get any repair parts for anymore.
Yeah, well, that's end of life for sure.
What'll probably end up happening is if you end up redoing the whole system at one time, they're all gonna go bad again at one time.
Yeah.
So we probably would have to start, like you were saying, saving that money, but realize it's not gonna rotate, it's gonna be boom, boom.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so for short term, you want to replace the one in Burn for sure, and then the near long term, start looking at different locations throughout the county.
Yes.
So, but today you definitely just need,
We really need to get the one in Bern
Yeah.
replaced.
So do you need funds right now then? Is that what you're asking, or is this more of an FYI?
We don't have it in our budget to replace that one. So
do you have a
most
quote?
We have a quote that came in from Federal Signal at 34,000.
I make a motion to approve 34,000 to, the EMA to purchase a signal.
Second.
Is this a commissioner item as opposed to us funding it? Should they initiate it or what?
But we have to approve the funds.
It can be approval contingent on, a motion contingent on commissioner's approval.
Well, okay.
Let's put it that way then.
Same with what he said with contingent upon the commissioners. I second.
First and second.
Then we'll have to figure out where to pay it from.
What's the line item right now? It's a repair budget, right? That's what we're putting it into.
It's the equipment and repair.
So that
I
line
can look
item.
at that fund
Is that
and study
if
that.
we have equipment under Cume Cat, we'll look at it. There should be a place to. And
There's gotta be somewhere besides Cume Cap though, somewhere other
well,
than
we'll just
that.
have to look. If
We
there's
got
an
plenty of
equipment line that isn't Cume, then do it there, but I'll look at that later and we'll figure out where to.
Have a motion for them to proceed as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And if any of you have questions, please contact us and we'll keep you posted on how it's going.
If you need help installing it, you can call Fred.
We will.
He's free that day.
I don't have.
There's less than I have in the air
Tony,
than
are
Fred
you
doesn't
gonna-
That would be a true addition.
Tony, you're gonna go over the additional appropriation, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, folks, I thought I'd tell you, the Monroe Council met last Thursday, and a guy in town said he'd lived in town there 14 years and had heard the siren in Monroe one time because he lived on the far west side of town and the wind blows from that direction.
He
And he almost
lives-
never hears.
Yeah, he
He's
lives
been there
close to
14 years,
the,
only
lives
heard
closer
it
to
one time.
27.
What he
Can't
said,
hear
so
it.
he wants to move to the water tower instead of the street,
He,
highway
well,
department.
that gentleman
His
wanted
idea.
another one, put on the new fire station. But
Well,
I
I'm looking at more expanding coverage, so.
have the municipalities coming in.
But
But no,
Yeah.
I don't have anything. Obviously, I'm covering doing the day.
Skid loader.
Some of the guys are here to discuss.
The one in downtown Geneva does, the one on the water tower north side is not so far.
I don't know who makes that decision and why.
Your house, can you hear the trailer?
Most of everybody's talking. With your gavel.
I'm able to hear.
Where's that? Where you got the gavel? Okay. Well, I think you all received, well, Jim, you might not have unless I sent it to you afterward, because I didn't realize you had JJ instead of just J, but we have amended salary ordinance, we have transfer, and we have additional appropriations. On the additional appropriations, each of the people seeking them are out here. And the request and so forth should have come attached with all your information. Would look something like this for each of them, saying why and all that stuff. But if you want to do the additional appropriations first, if you have questions on clerk, jail, or county drug-free community, they're all out here to answer those for you. I don't see an IT one. See a salary ordinance for IT. Well, they should have received all of that. The clerk additional is 16,000 for equipment. Jail is inmate extradition, 10,000. The drug-free community, 30,265.36, and that's simply because their budget time that they have to get in is different than ours. And this just appropriates, is that correct, Ian?
Yes.
So, yeah. So if anybody has any questions on any of those. Total amount is 56,265.36 altogether. All funds.
Need a motion for that?
Yep. No discussion, motion approved.
Need a motion to approve?
Real quick though, so none of this was budgeted?
The county drug-free, I just explained it had to be appropriated because their budget was due at a different time than
gotcha.
ours.
Okay, sorry, I was reading, not
The
listening.
clerk was she was here last month. Had to do with the was it the desktop computer, Shelley? Desktop computers,
And we gave you the verbal okay to.
and then, Dan on the inmate extradition.
Inmate extradition is, we budget funds, it depends where people get picked up. Last year, we transferred at the end of the year, 9,362 from another line item to cover it. It's just too early for me in this year to transfer out of their funds and make them go red. So, we've used my extradition already. This year, we've had 3 out-of-state people we've gone way out of state to go get. So that's why that fund is done. And then the other one for the car is, I'm just requesting the insurance money that, from a crash car that the insurance paid into county general, and I'm using that to replace the car.
You know, make a second.
Motion second to adjourn.
Jim was first.
I guess I'll take the verbal instead of the. Okay, so Jim and John, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, and then, we have one transfer that's also in the clerk's office.
I'll move to approve that.
On the second.
Okay,
Questions, comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, final thing is the 2025 amended salary ordinance, which you also should have received. Any questions on those?
Is Angie your first deputy now, Tony?
Yes. Yep.
Shouldn't be any question on that. Need a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Second.
Got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
If you want to sign those all three first, I'll pass them on around. Then I think we're ready for the matters.
Good. Like a secretary or something.
Are there any other matters to be brought before us at this time?
Nope.
Oh, whoops.
I'm on page 15, I hope not.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Don't forget to sign these coming around, guys.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good day.
Is this executive?
We have an executive session following this. So once the executive session starts, everyone will have to leave except commissioners, council, attorney, and myself. And then return when the commissioners start again.
No, you're fine.
Press has to leave, especially Eric.
Can I take a quick second for these guys?
You say a second?
Gentlemen, a quick second every time. So the county fire department's put together a fire audit.
It's on my radar.
And we'd like to invite all you guys out to it if you'd want to participate. Basically, it's gonna give you the experience of what we go through in a day. So you'll get some live fire.
They still need to submit like an actual appropriation request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just put that amount on that.
It's,
Cause they said it ended up being 28.
Informational meeting, kind of give you guys the gist of what it takes to run a fire department in the county.
Yeah.
With all the challenges with apparatus replacement, stuff like that, so if you guys are interested.
And then you only need 28 more, as they were saying, so.
Feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Thanks.
Lenny's always wanted to be a firefighter.
Tony? Yes. My contact, Jeff Sheets' contact, you contact either one of us. And if you can't do the hands-on and you wanna do